Hey everyone, I'm Devin, back in the overview office, and the first time that I tried to do this video, it got corrupted. I was deemed unworthy, and so I'm here with my instant replacement. Which would be funnier if you knew that that was a function of card in this game that you could use to replace a card when it's not the optimal strategy. So at the end of this video, go back and watch this. You're gonna be like, that guy's hilarious. But until then, let's get going. I've already done a quick overview video, but if you're not familiar with this game, this is Senjutsu Battle for Japan. This is in partnership with Stone Sword Games, and it is a 20 to 30 minute tabletop miniatures skirmish game. It involves deck construction, and it is a card-based initiative order resolution chess match of the minds, only we are in feudal Japan, and we've got awesome samurai. Like this one, that guy's holding a sword. I didn't know if you knew that. He's holding a sword. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. So this series is a single turn. I am once again going to turn that on its head and have it be 2 turns instead of 1, so that you can see what might happen at the beginning of the game and what might happen at the end of the game. That's going to provide some context for how things shift. That is even more important than it was when I did it in the Kyrie, because in this game, your wounds and any other effects that you have like stun and hobble, those actually filter into your hand and clog it up, which means the process of you drawing new cards into your hand is slowed and stymied by not having as much choice whenever you're trying to figure out what you're doing, and it's because you're injured. Obviously, if I was bleeding in 3 different places, I wouldn't be thinking as straight as I was if I wasn't bleeding from 3 different places. I think that's just natural. So it is reflected in the progressive decline of your full strategic scope as you go, which means the cat and mouse games are important, because the closer you get to death, the more narrow your field of vision is, both literally and also in your gameplay. Cool, let's get started. Each player that we have right here, the student and the warrior, has a hand size of 5, but there's also 2 core cards, your basic core card and your attack core card. Both of those are always in your hand and they don't count towards your maximum. So currently each player has a hand size of 7, though 5 of those are the finite ones that you have to watch out for, especially when you start to rack up some wounds. We are positioned on this hexagonal field here. You have the warrior that is facing straight ahead, and off to their diagonal right is the student that is also facing straight ahead for themselves. They are kind of pinioned between 2 rocks here. There's a little bit of wiggle room, but not much. You've also got some bamboo and a shrine right here. These are terrain elements that you can incorporate into your board whenever you're playing a game. And the more that you do, the more confined the spatial elements are, and the more strategy you have to allocate towards where you want to be on the battlefield. But for right now, we're at the early outset of the game. No one's got a wound yet, and we're going to see what's going to happen with our opponents. Over here on the kind of player dashboard area where you've got their basic card, you've also got their Kame branches. Both of them happen to actually be in their determination Kame branch rather than their neutral one. Again, they would have started on opposite sides of the battlefield, and they've been slowly hemming in towards each other as they have been advancing in play. Let's see what a turn is going to look like in this game. So our players have played their cards. We're about to simultaneously reveal them and then kind of go through some ordered steps. Sequencing and timing is very important in this game. There are some things that would have already happened after the last turn. Any start of turn effects would have occurred. Any pre-card draw effects would have occurred. Then our players would have refilled their hands from the card that they played the last time, so they would have drawn a new card. After that, there's post-card draw effects. There is a priority in terms of how some of these things need to be resolved, and that's so that you can take advantage of the cards in your hand to the full extent. So we've got 2 players that have played their cards. The student and the warrior both have theirs in front of them. Let's see what they did. So the student has played a card called Obedience with a variable initiative speed of 7 to 3. And then the warrior has played an attack card with a pretty high initiative of 7. Now we need to figure out if there's any other elements at play here. So neither of these have mandatory focus costs, which you would see on the left side of the card, and neither of them have optional focus costs that are going to be in play. So at that point, we need to see if anybody is going to be doing an instant replacement. And what that really means is once you see the opponent's card, card. Is there anything you would change? So if you look at the warrior, other than the hex directly in front of him, he's actually going to be doing a wide sweep that encompasses all of the other hexes in a circle, and that includes where the student is going to be. If this is not blocked, it will result in a wound. And if it's successful, they get to do some additional resolutions, including pushing the opponent, which is great because that would go directly into a rock. They also would force a discard potentially, and then they get a mandatory switch to a Kame position, which would be aggression, which is good because the warrior likes to be aggressive. So if successful, this attack would be great. However, the student has played obedience. With a variable speed of 7 to 3, they're allowed to choose that initiative order before any cards are resolved. So if they choose an initiative speed of 7, it matches the attack from the warrior, and then it negates that attack. It's a successful block, which would be very good for the student because then they would get to switch the opponent's Kame, and they would also be able to steal a focus, and they could change their own Kame up to 1 branch. So this would be a very successful card all around if they're able to defend this. But that's where instant replacements come in, and also my joke from earlier. So the student doesn't have any instant replacement, and clearly they don't want to because they've got a successful block on hand. But the warrior does not want such a massive swing between what would have been a really good hit and a really bad defensive blunder on their end by getting blocked by the student. So they are going to use the dirt throw, which is an instant replacement. The card that they originally had is discarded, it's gone. If they had spent any focus, they would have been reimbursed, but that didn't happen. So now we need to look at dirt throw. Dirt throw affects the front arc of the warrior. So once again, the student is in the line of fire. However, it's unblockable. So the student had a fantastic defensive card set up, but now it's not applicable to the warding arc, and it's also not blocking the dirt throw. So the obedience card is kind of irrelevant at this point. It's going to be discarded anyway, and we can look at what dirt throw does. Dirt throw affects that front arc, and whoever it hits, whatever target it lands on, it actually forces them to discard 2 of their focus, which is not good. It's a very useful currency to spend in this game. So that's great that they were able to get rid of that. And then if they're successful, which they are because it wasn't blocked, that samurai has to switch from wherever they were on their Kame branch to their neutral branch. So they would switch over from determination back over to neutral, which kind of slows down their progress to maybe some of the stances and some of the branches that would give them higher resolution options on their cards. And then they can change their own Kame up to 1 branch. So I don't think we want to go up. I think we're going to come back down to neutral because that gets the warrior closer to aggression, which is really where they like to dwell. Warriors like to be aggressive. It makes sense. So they want to be there. And that's a full turn in the game. The warrior has sidestepped what could have been a disastrous block from the student, and then they have instead inflicted the most amount of damage that round by wiping clean the slate of focus that the student had and also forcing them back to the neutral branch, which is kind of a reset. But we want to see what happens when people are closer to death, they've been injured, their options are more limited, and we're towards the finale or the end state of the game. So we're going to reset, and then we're going to do it again. Another turn on the series that's called a single turn, because I have problems. And we're reset. Moments later, not days later, and for the first time, not the umpteenth. We are ready to go, So, the student has repositioned by the shrine. In doing so, they've picked up a second focus token, which we'll see the benefit of very shortly. And then the warrior is holding fast, snug as a bug, up against this boulder, which those terrain elements can have a factor in how the game goes based off of your card play and your movement. So it is not a bad idea to be near them sometimes. Just don't get caught unawares and have it be to your bad effect. Have it be to the bad effect of your opponent. So the student and the warrior, they've got their hands, and I think they already know what they want to play, and it's not due to the practiced, familiar surety of a man who has filmed this before. It's just the straight up confidence of these warriors. All right, so the student is enacting the lightning tail, 9 initiative speed, and the warrior has come with a more plodding, a more leisurely headbutt at an initiative speed of 4. So the lightning tail will definitely happen first. Neither of them have an instant replacement card, which would be useful for the warrior potentially at this time, but they don't have that option. So the student is going to go ahead with its mandatory focus cost of 2, and then thankfully they are in the balanced Kame branch, so they can play this. If they weren't in that branch, they would not have been able to even choose this card. It wouldn't have been eligible. They are going to take their mandatory move off to the right, and then to close the distance, they're going to take their optional move right here. They're not going to rotate at all, and they're just going to keep that forward facing. Their attack hits all 3 places in the forward arc there, so the warrior is going to get hit, and that is going to induce a 4th wound. If you hadn't noticed already, they're wounded. We're later in the game, fast forwarding, and they've got a 4th wound now, which is going to put them even closer to that 5 wound threshold. Both of them are kind of hanging on by a thread at this point, but the warrior's thread is slightly thinner. And then the student will switch over to the aggression branch. Keep in mind it said switch, so they don't move through that focus branch at all and pick up another focus token. But they do have something up their sleeve that they can do an instant additional. This is going to be Calm Exposure. It is going to allow them to draw up to 2 cards that will be beneficial for their strategy moving forward. And it will actually influence what branch that they want to go to. That's pretty fantastic. So I think we're actually going to shift it down here. They also are going to gain a focus token, and then they're going to switch to any Kame branch, which they've already done. I already did that because I was excited and I knew what I wanted to do for my next turn. I mean, not my next turn. It's not me. This is just teaching you guys. I'm not invested at all. Calm Composure, Lightning Tail is finished. The student has finished their turn, and then the warrior is moving along with their headbutt. So the warrior is going to move to that spot right there using their optional move on their card. Then they're going to, because they're in the aggression branch, use their optional rotation to once again lock in that headbutt directly ahead of them. And they've done that so that they can evade the frontward facing of the student, which might make it a little bit thornier of a problem for them to solve whenever the next turn comes around. The warrior lands that blow, which is going to add a 4th wound to the student. And then because they were successful, they have some additional effects that they can resolve. So the warrior is going to inflict hobble on the student. That remains in play, and while it's active, it reduces their initiative speed. Now that both players have 4 wounds, they each only need to inflict 1 more on their opponent. So having a reduced initiative speed is not the best thing that the student could be suffering from. They're probably not super happy, and then the warrior gains 1 more focus token from that. They don't have any instant additional cards to play, so they're not going to, which means the story is coming to a close. Now, you can finish this story, though. You can let me know what happens. Does the warrior, in their resplendent armor, take the victory by finding a weak point in the student's incredibly chiseled abs? Or has the student learned enough to be an evasive, canny foe and dodge the killing blow and inflict one of their own? Or does the master want to enter the fray and show everybody who taught the student everything that he knows? Or maybe the Ronin's going to come charging in from the side and kind of blindly enter into combat here. That's a thing that could happen, because this is a 1 to 4 player game. It could get pretty crazy. Do you want to put more terrain in here? There's different options, and they all have their own effects. Do you want a different battlefield entirely? You can if you want. There's other options at play. Do you want to construct your own deck? You can do that too once you learn how to play. If you want to be balletic and operatic rather than simply just a charging brute who goes bash, bash, bash with your head and your hands and your weapons, you can mix it up and do whatever you want, because Senjutsu, Battle for Japan, it answers to no one. It answers to no one. All right. This has, without a doubt, been a grueling filming session, but it's mainly because of my ineptitude, and that has nothing to do with the game. It just means I'm an idiot. So I hope that you enjoyed this game, and don't be idiotic. Be the smartest fighter in the world. and defeat all of your enemies. That's all I ask. I want you to defeat all of your enemies. And if you have any questions, let me know. I'll be back in the overview office before long showing you off more of our titles. But this is Stone Sword Games. This is their title, Senjutsu Battle for Japan, that we have published in partnership with them, and we love them. They're sweethearts. And we love these little guys too, but they're fierce little fellas, and so we gotta keep our distance. That's why I'm not finishing the fight. I don't want one of them to be mad at me. All right. This has been a single turn, but simply it's been 2 turns. So you have to decide why that was the case. I don't know. I don't really know. All right. See you guys next time. Peace.